Welcome back. The Electoral Commission has welcomed the passing of the Electoral Amendment Bill by Parliament. The bill will allow independent candidates to stand for the 2024 provincial and national elections. Acting Deputy Chief Electoral Officer Granville Abrahams joins us now for more on what that moment means. Thank you so much for making time for us, Granville. What does this adoption of the bill mean for the policy framework that was directed by the Constitutional Court? Is that now concluded?
Thanks very much, Clement, and thanks for the opportunity. Yes, indeed, it is. It's nearly 1,000 days later. The order of the court was that Parliament had to amend the relevant section of the Electoral Act to ensure that independents are also able to contest national and provincial elections. And that has been successfully been done now.
Mm-hmm. So this places you as a commission in a position to ramp up your, I suppose, preparations for the 2024 national and provincial elections. You can now work with greater certainty.
Well, as we have Parliament for mention in December that we had already started, and we commenced with our preparations in amending and adjusting our procedures and systems is because of the fact that the bill had already been in the National Assembly passed, had gone to the NCOP, and the amendments that the NCOP had made, that they were specific and would not have impacted much on our preparations. So in our affidavit to the court, we admitted that we had already commenced, but now, with greater certainty, we can forge forward.
Did the delay impact on your planning? Do you still have enough time to plan efficiently?
Yes, indeed. I mean, if we had waited up until now, we would have obviously have had some challenges with regard to time. However, we had prepared, and as things became clearer, we have started, we've commenced. So we are definitely on track. And as you would notice, within the week now past, we signaled that we are ready and also inviting South Africans to join us on our online registration platform, because it's all systems go now, and we also encourage citizens to begin to register as well.
Yeah. And now that planning is in full swing, so you are telling South Africans, eligible voters, to go and register to vote online already. How do they need to do that? Because the last count shows, I think, about 220,000, if I'm not mistaken, eligible South Africans who have heeded the call to visit the Electoral Commission's voter portal to register online to vote since the launch of the national campaign on Monday. How many people are you trying to reach?
Clement, that's a very good question. The gap is quite huge. So we got a large pool to fish in. We are making available the facilities for everyone who wish to register. First of all, as I've mentioned now, more than a year ahead of time of the election, we are making available the online registration platform where you can register in your own time, wherever, whenever. We will also be having the customary registration weekends just ahead of the elections. And we are prepared to register everyone who wants to be registered. But it depends on South Africans to take that step, either to go online or those who do not have the facilities, when we do open up our voter registration weekends, to actually do that. The gap that we are looking at currently for those who are on the voters roll compared to those who are on the population register, the gap is quite huge. And we're talking about close to 16 million people that have not as yet placed their name on the voters roll, but that are eligible based on the national population register.
Mm-hmm. But do you have a target of how many registered voters you would like to have this year? And I know that's going to involve a lot of work through your registration weekends, the campaigns that you're going to be running to get more and more people to register. But when you look at the last elections numbers, do you have a target as the Electoral Commission as to how many people you hope will register this year?
We have, and I'm now only speaking about new registrations, over the election period, we can expect, as we have done in the past, our track record showed us that we would normally net about 1 million new voters to add onto the voters roll. However, the activity, because of the fact that voter registration is not just for voters who are newly registered, it's also for all voters to update their details, that we have seen as going as high in the 2016 election, I think as high as 4 million in terms of activity. But at least we're hoping to get 1 million new voters as we have done in the past elections. But as I've mentioned, there's opportunity to exceed that if citizens heed the call. And this is not just a job for the IEC. We also invite civil society, political parties as well to ensure that voters are called to action to add their name onto the voters roll. But at least if we look at the previous registration weekends, we at least want to increase hopefully by 1 million voters.
Yeah. Is there going to be a greater focus on young people? Because in the past we've seen how they come really in small numbers.
Clement, that's a very interesting question. You know, the youth, the dynamic of the youth is that they are new entrants because of those who turn 16 or 18 years old, 16, they're eligible to register, and 18 eligible to vote. These are new entrants all of the time. However, in the other age brackets, if you must call it the age bracket, people stay there a bit longer. They've had more time to register as well. But the interesting fact is that even though registration amongst the youth obviously needs a big improvement, what we have noticed is that despite the lower than expected registration participation, when it comes to voter participation, that the youth, their participation level on election is actually higher than any other group. So what we are expecting, and specifically now that we are going the digital route, because this is what young people have been asking for, to make it more easy, more accessible. They want to open their phone, and they want an app, or they want to go into a website, and they want to do it in their own time. This is specifically, but not exclusively, aimed at the youth to ensure that there is greater participation as far as that is concerned.
Yeah.
We also have dedicated programs which will kick off in the new month during our Schools Democracy Week, where we'll be going into schools as well as tertiary educations, specifically targeting the youth once again.
What about the voters who are already registered and have moved since the last elections? What do they need to do?
Lemon, that's a very important question, especially for this election. Whilst we all have tracked and followed the amendment now to the Electoral Act dealing with the participation of independents, we actually did have an amendment in 2021, which is quite substantial as it relates to where you vote in a national and provincial election. Previously, you may have recalled that in a national and provincial election, you could effectively have voted anywhere. In a municipal election, however, you had to vote in the voting station, and you could only vote there where you had been registered. We have now aligned the National Provincial Electoral Act, so that should you require to vote at a voting station other than the one where you are registered, then you can only do so if you have applied and given notice to the Chief Electoral Officer. And in addition to that, you would actually even need to designate the voting station where you will cast your vote. So no longer will you just be able to arrive at any voting station and then wish to cast your vote. So it's important that in as much as we want to grow the voters' roll, it's also important that the voters who are already registered, that they ensure that their address details are correct, that they are registered in the correct voting district, because for this election, you will only be allowed to vote in the voting districts where you're registered. Alternatively, you would then have to give notice ahead of the election as to where you would then want to vote. And if you are going to be outside of your province, let's say the address where your new one is, then you would not be allowed to participate in that provincial ballot. So your new address, and you have ample opportunity between now and when the voters' roll closes sometime next year, it's important that you update your voters' roll details on the voters' roll. And therefore, once again, we have made available the online application for that so that you can start doing it now. We don't want a situation, as we are accustomed as South Africans, that when we need to update our details, that there's a last-minute rush and congestion and all sorts of challenges.
Yeah. Granville Abrahams, thank you for making time for us this afternoon.